Okay, first thing, cleaning your bearings. If you've had a wet skatey day and you need to clean your bearings, so the first thing we need to do is take the bearings out of the wheels. Okay, I have a container here. I've already taken all of mine out except for one. I'm also putting in that there for the moment the spacers. Okay, they're going to get a clean as well. So simply pull the bearing out, whichever method you use to remove the bearings from your wheel. Okay, put them all into a container. Now these wheels are going to get a clean too later, and I will show you the process for that as well later on. Okay, so I have all of my bearings that I need to clean, and I was in a wet skatey area today, so I need to basically remove the moisture first before we clean the bearings. So methylated spirits, or a basic, anything that's like an alcohol base, such as you can use isopropyl, all that sort of stuff. You can even just have it in a squirt pack and put the bearings down on a cloth and give them with a trigger pack, squirt a good squirt in and around all the bearings. What I'm going to do here is just simply pour it in so it covers them. Lid back up, pop it out of the road, grab the lid to the container and just give them a bit of a rinse. Now it's not going to take long for the water to separate or be broken down. So what the alcohol actually does, instead of separating, like white spirits will make the water fall to the bottom and the white spirit sits on top, but it keeps the water all together. Okay, what this does is it basically emulsifies the water. That means it breaks it up into smaller components, and then it basically gets joined to the alcohol. Okay, and basically what will happen is when you take them out and they dry, the water goes off with the actual alcohol. So put them aside for the moment. Another easy container, this is just another little plastic container. Always check to make sure your plastic containers are safe with the chemicals like the terps and stuff. If you put a bit in there and it starts to look like it's melting, you've got a problem, you can't use that container. So these are just generic little plastic containers you get from the shops. Okay, pour the bearings and alcohol back into that container. Now that's mainly so that I can get to them easily, okay? So that they can actually be selected out or grabbed quite easily. So put my container to the top there. Now first thing I do is quickly pull out just my spacers. They're all nice and squeaky clean now. So there's all my spacers. Just put them out here on the bench. Then I pull out my bearings and I simply set them down with the case on these bearings. You can see that I've got the case or the cover removed on one side and the cover is still on the other side. Okay, so put it down like so. So the open cover is facing down, allows it to drain. Pull them out. Now you still may feel some grit on the outside of them. That's because the alcohol won't separate the oil or the lubricant you've used. So just simply grab them all, sit them down. Okay, and because we can use this over and over again, pour it back into my metho. Now I don't use the metho for much else around the house, maybe a bit of cleaning or wiping down. Okay, pop that to the side. Now I'm not going to need this container anymore. Put it out of the road. Cool. Now if I grab the bearings, the first thing I do is just grab all my spacers and put them back into the container. So that they're ready for me to put them back into the wheels. Now if I grab the bearings, they'll feel a bit chunky because that's the grit and the lubricant still, but the water's been pulled out. Okay, so now it's the job of actually washing the actual physical bearings. So what I've got, I use simple, basically vitamin container, okay, and a lid. I've got a special made up lid that I did. This is the same lid off this, but what I've done is I've put an 8mm bolt through the lid in the center, and on the bottom I have a wing nut, so you can see. Spin the wing nut off, and what I do is I put a bearing on and then a split washer. These give me separation between the bearings. Flat washers tend to cover it and don't allow the grit to get out too much. The spring washer is narrower and it sits up higher. And I just keep doing this until it's full of bearings. That's as far as I can go on this one. Put the wing nut on. Okay, rightio. So how many did I get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I do 6 bearings at a time. So as I said, put them on. The open side of the bearing is facing downwards. The cover side of the bearing is facing upwards in here. Okay, so I grab some turpentine. Pretty fill this pretty well nearly all the way to the top, maybe about 1 centimetre off the top. Okay. Put bearings, now submerge them into the container. Put a cover on it, screw it down tight. These containers inherently leak, so I put a cloth on it so I don't start flicking turpentine all over the house or the wife will complain. Okay, so just give it a good shake to start with. Screw it. Have a look, lift them up and drain, lift it up and drain, lift it up, let it drain, lift it up, let it drain. Now if I give them a spin, they should spin effortlessly. If any of them don't, they need more cleaning. Okay, so I've got one there that needs a bit more, so I'll give it a few more up and downs. But they all feel pretty good this time round. Put my container to the side. Get a cleanish microfiber. Slide them off. Stack them again, face side, or the open cover side facing down. Okay, now start loading the next lot up and then I can come back to those other ones in a minute. Bearing with the cover facing the lid, washer on. Bearing with the cover facing the lid, washer on. Now it's going to take about 3 washers to do this whole set. Okay. ring nut back on, back into the solution. Give it a cover again, give it a shake. Let it sit. And just while that's sitting for a minute, I'm checking to make sure these are clean now. Give you a listen and see if you can hear. Should be nice and spinny like that. Back again. Okay, bearings are clean. They've had a chance to air dry, so that basically the terps has actually evaporated out of them now. You should be able to get them to spin really easily. If any of them have any sort of clunky bits, they need to go back in to be washed. Okay, so now what we're looking at here is we're going to actually look at how we can actually lubricate them, which is really quite simple. So basically, set your bearings up on a rag, piece of cloth, whatever, turn them over so that they're all with the open case now facing upwards. Okay, so just spin it over like so. So I've got the open casing side of the bearing facing up. Lubricant wise, there's a couple of different sorts of lubricants you can use. I have certain bearings that I use for road, and I treat them for road because road tends to be more grittier and you can skate in the rain like we did today. So basically I use a different sort of lubricant to help to repel the moisture. The lubricant that I get, this is just from the bike shop. So this is basically a wet lube. It's a TFS product, fairly cheap. It's about $12, and I think I've had it more than nearly 2 years now, about 18 months, 2 years, and it's still probably more than half full because you only put one drop in each bearing. Okay. The other lubricant that I use, but more for indoor ones, it's another TF2 product. It's probably their best lubricant to make them spin the fastest, and I use this for indoors, and that's it there. It's a spray one. It's got a Teflon within it, and again it's about $12 to $13 from a bike shop. You can also use WD, sewing machine oil, any light oil that you want, okay? Your choice when it comes to a lubricant, as long as it's fairly light and it makes the bearing spin freely. Okay, there are some greases you can use, but they're usually a bit gluggy. Okay, really simple. How easy this is to do. Just simply, this has got a nice little spout, and it'll bring up a drop. If I hold it there, you can see the drop. That's all I need per bearing. So I just slightly squeeze, put a drop in each bearing until I've done them all. Very easy to lubricate. One drop per bearing. Just check to make sure you've done them all. Close it back up. Now at this stage I just simply, it'll go through to the back to the casing. I just wipe the excess off, but now I just give it a spin, put it into my container where my clean spacers are.